Hello everyone, my name is Adam Michael Anthony Simpson and you're watching my YouTube channel, Adam M.A. Simpson. For this episode, we're interviewing Esiteli Hafoka. She's a PhD candidate at Stanford in the Religious Studies department. I'm so excited for this interview. I know Esiteli through DARE, that's Diversifying Academia Recruiting Excellence 14, that's the 14th cohort, and I've heard her story a couple times now, and every time she tells us, I'm so inspired because Esiteli is not only a mother, but also an electrician, a community college graduate, and now a scholar in religious studies. And Esiteli's story follows her unique path through understanding her Christian faith growing up, and then trying to figure out how as a Tongan-American herself, how Christianity interweaves with the Tongan experience, and she focuses mostly on Methodism and Mormonism in Tongan-American individuals. So please stay tuned. This is a really interesting and enlightening interview, and I am so excited for you to watch. Okay, so Esiteli, thank you so much for being a part of this interview. Please introduce yourselves for the audience.
Hello, thanks so much, Adam, for having me. My name is Esiteli Hafoka. I don't even know what year I'm at Stanford, 6th year. I'm a 6th-year PhD student in the Department of Religious Studies, just working on my dissertation, so technically I'm TGR. And yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to finish this thing and move on with my life.
Awesome, same here. I know, like after your second or third year, it's like the years just merge, and you're just like, what year am I? Like,
I always get stuck. Like when I'm introducing myself, I'm like,
Yeah,
I can't remember what year I'm at. Like
I've just been here.
After qualifying exams, everything is just like whatever.
Yes. All right, so Esiteli, I've heard your story, and I'm so inspired every time you tell us in DARE. We're both DARE fellows, that's Diversifying Academia Recruiting Excellence, through the Vice Provost for Graduate Education's fellowship program. And I always love when you share this story. So you're a mother, an electrician, and a scholar of religion. Please walk us through your path to where you are now, and so along the way, what led you to graduate school?
Sure, no problem. So I'm a lot older than people think I am. I graduated high school in the year 2000. My nieces and nephews always joke around and they say, "What did you guys used to do back in the late 1900s?" And I'm like, oh. but yeah, I graduated in 2000. I went to a local community college because I didn't apply for any four-year universities. I couldn't get past the FAFSA. That was just such a difficult application to fill out. Mm-hmm. And I just threw it away. And I thought, like, whatever, I'll just go to the local community college and transfer to university. But after a year of being at the local community college, I didn't want to go to school anymore. And I had kind of a taste of making money from working for my dad. Mm-hmm. So my dad owns a residential electrical company. And so he's a subcontractor for a lot of these like larger
construction
tract home builders.
Oh, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I just started working for him, and then I dropped out of school in like 2000, the end of 2001, and I was on academic probation. I had a bunch of like D's. It was pretty bad. But I was like, oh, who cares? I'll just be an electrician for the rest of my life. I don't need this stuff. And I worked for my dad for about 10 years.
Wow.
And so in 2008, when the housing market crashed, all of the developers went out of business, and it was rough. My dad had to lay off all of his workers, and it was just me, my dad, a couple of my cousins, and an uncle who we did the work of, I don't know, like 3 or 4 crews.
Wow.
And just to keep the company going, yeah, it was rough. It was rough. So we would work from like 6 o'clock in the morning. We'd race the sun to about 9 o'clock at night.
What?
And this was working 6 days a week. Yeah, it was hardcore.
Wow.
And we did that for a couple of years. So 2008, 2009. And it just wasn't getting better. I mean, like it's the Great Recession is what it's called now, right? But at the time, it was just really rough. And so we were thankful to get my dad's mortgage paid. You know, my uncle and his kids who are still working with us get their mortgages paid. And so, yeah, we like I can talk about it now, but at the time I was like pretty nervous about it. We're thankful for my mom's church because we're able to get just like the kind of cupboard necessities, right?
Yeah,
like rice,
exactly.
Flour, and different kinds of food and stuff. And we were just like getting by with whatever we had. So it was tough. But it was at that time that my dad suggested that I go back to school. He's like, you know, this is really hard. It's hard to be a small business owner. It's hard to be in construction, especially when construction is dependent on like a really good economy.
Yeah.
And so he's like, maybe you should go back to school because, you know, people in the medical industry and people, you know, like people are just going back to school now. You should go. And so I dropped back into the local community college. I'm back, guys! I'm back! And they were like, welcome back. You're on academic probation.
Oh, God!
It was so bad. So not only was I broke because, you know, it was just the struggle was real.
Exactly, yeah.
But I couldn't even get financial aid because I was on academic probation.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was bad. And like when I was in school in 2000, like way back then, the cost per unit was only $11. Or maybe it was like 7. And then it jumped up to like 30, I think, in like 2009.
Oh, could you say that again? It chipped out a little bit. What was only $11?
Oh, so the cost per unit at the local community college. Yeah, it was
$11. Wow.
This is way back in the day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was $11, and I didn't even have financial aid back then. And then my brother told me, hey, you should apply for the BOG waiver, which is the Board of Governors waiver for California community colleges. It means you can go to school like tuition free.
Wow.
But you can't be on academic probation to get the BOG waiver. So I think it was like $30 a unit, and I started back slowly. I went back and I took like a sociology class or something.
That's a cool class to take.
Yeah, I think it was a good introduction kind of back into the academic life for me. But it was kind of torturous. I just felt like I was like, I don't belong here. It was rough. It was like a night class, and so it was a really interesting like combination of people in the class. The professor was awesome. And my younger brother, that's another embarrassing feature, is like my younger brother, who's like 9 years younger than me, was like taking the class with me.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was kind of fun, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, my baby brother, who's like a decade younger than me, is in my class. But it was cool. It was a good kind of, you know, getting my toe in the water and like filling it out. And so I just like kind of progressively took another class the next semester, 2 more classes the following semester. And And I had just decided, I'm gonna go back to school. Like this is it. This is lit for me. And
can I ask you? Sorry, I'm sorry for it. Can I ask you a question? Like, was it when you got like your first grades and you like, oh yeah, it wasn't that bad?
Yeah, no, I definitely. So I was in like the top 10% of my high school graduating class. So I knew I wasn't dumb.
Oh wow!
I was just academic probation was because I dropped out of the classes like halfway through, like I think before the midterms, and my professors gave me like D minuses, so they wouldn't fail me.
Oh,
they wouldn't just give me the
that's
F.
so mean.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I should have just dropped and got the W, but I didn't, and so I think these professors had just had it with like community college students, and they were like, you know what? Forget you. You can't take this poli-sci or retake this poli-sci class. She gave me a D minus. Wow. And then there was another class, I can't remember what it was, and they gave me like a D minus too. And so I couldn't even retake the class. Wow. I had to just live with that D minus on my transcript for my whole life. It's still like the bane of my existence. But when I went back
to look where you are now.
I'm saying. I'm gonna take that D minus and like blow it up and like
put it on the back of your cap when you graduate.
And I'm just gonna keep reminding myself I'm a D minus student. That it literally. So I just moved on and I was with this guy at the time, and he was the one who told me, he's like, why would you ever get anything less than an A? He was like, you're like an A student. You can just do A level work. Like, why would you ever? And so then it was at that point that I just told myself, you're not going to get less than A. Like, you're just only going to get A's. And then I was able to do that for the most part. Like, I wouldn't settle for anything less. When I had transferred to a 4-year university, I got... it was rough. Those D minuses, they haunt me because I had to explain in a letter, right? I had to explain them. Oh, I was on academic probation because I'm an idiot and like didn't drop any of my classes. And my professors were assholes and didn't want to give me the F or something like that. But you know what I mean? It's like, and then I had to explain that again when I transferred. I mean, when I applied to Stanford and other schools. Yeah, so like it's like those D minuses, they haunted me. Like I'll probably have to explain that again when I get a job.
I doubt it. If you do, it's not the right place for you because like I don't know. My advisor actually told me if you're applying for a faculty job, if they ask to differentiate you from your transcript, it's not the right place because like who's here to get A's? Like. Right. We're trying to like improve the subject in general. Yes. Like
yes.
I don't know.
Yes, that's so true. And that's great advice. I'm gonna keep that in mind. Yeah. It's just those D minuses, like I had a goal to graduate from undergrad as with summa cum laude, and I was 0.003 like points away from summa cum laude, and it was those damn D minuses.
Oh no!
It's like,
sorry, we had some connection issues. Esiteli was saying that in order for her to graduate summa cum laude, she'd have to take extra classes. Getting back to the video.
I would have to extra classes just to graduate summa cum laude, D minuses, and so it's so bad. It's like it just haunted me for a long time. But I got through. I mean, I transferred. I was able to transfer to UC Riverside, and I transferred as a history major. And I loved like ancient history. I loved reading about like the early Christian church. And that's before I realized that there was a religious studies major. I had taken like a bunch of courses. I think at this point it was like my 4th course, and the professor was the head of the department.
Sorry, it got like cracky here as well. Esiteli was saying she spoke to the religious studies department chair about the program. So yeah, getting back to it here.
And then she was like, let me take a look at like what class you've taken, because I've seen you, around the department. coursework. Even the coursework that I took before I transferred to UCR was qualified as like the lower division courses for the religious studies major.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, oh yeah, like I'll walk out of here with 2 majors. That's all good. So getting that degree, but like my passion for taking those courses, which was reading the Old Testament and the New Testament. It was just kind of me on a religious journey trying to understand, like, where I stood spiritually. I took a bunch of like sex in the early church and like different kind of cool courses like that to really understand like the context of the early Christian identity. And I got to graduate as an ancient history and religious studies major at UCR. Wow. Which I wrote my senior paper on the King of Tonga, the first King of Tonga as an ecclesiastic, as a religious leader, as opposed to his role as like the temporal ruler of Tonga. To understand like how he kind of manufactured a Tongan identity. And it's just the way that Tongans talk about Christianity at the core of their identity and different things like that got me interested in pursuing a religious studies degree, a graduate religious studies degree. Because I think like, even in my department, they asked like, well, you could go to ethnic studies or you could go to history. Why religious studies? And I told them that I've read so much work like in history and ethnic studies, and they're missing this larger component that explains how religion could be used as the lens, not just as kind of a component of people's daily lives, but as the actual lens that people look through when they see the world. And that's what's missing in those fields, and that's the reason why I'm in religious studies.
I like that you said that, because I grew up in a Christian household, and if you haven't grew up in a Christian household, you won't understand how it like weaves into your understanding of the world, and how you just said that, like, it's like your existence is shaped by your Christianity.
And so that's what I'm trying to understand about Tongans, and that's what led me to grad school programs. And I think even though I advise other Pacific Islanders who kind of seek out advice for applying to graduate programs, even though I advise them to say like, go and like research, do a bunch of research on the advisors you want to work with and blah, blah, blah. Like, I didn't do that. I just figured like, if I'm applying, I just like did research on which programs are like the top 10 programs in the world. And I figured the top 10 programs are going to have the top 10 best scholars, who work in those fields. So I'm like, I don't want to call myself a hypocrite, but I mean, I learned through that experience that like, you should do some, I just lucked out. I lucked out and got like the greatest advisor I could ever be matched up with. So that's just me being lucky.
I love that. the honesty is so great. And so I'm gonna go into our following question, which is talking about you do a lot of outreach for Pacific Islanders in the Bay Area. Tell us about your outreach. So I usually like to record this portion of the interview separately because it's so awkward, especially in this case with Esiteli, where she does so much outreach. It's just weird to list everything out. And in the actual interview, I absolutely butchered this section. So please forgive me, I'm reading off of my computer. Here goes. So tell us about your outreach work. Your research and your outreach serve the community you are part of. You serve in many roles, such as a board member for Vakatasi Foundation, a consultant for South Pacific Islander Organization as SPIO, mentor for MANA Learning Community, which is a support program geared towards the Pacific Islander community that centralizes intensive retention strategies needed for success throughout student transition from community college into four-year colleges. You are a fellow of the National Association of Pacific American Leadership Institute, that's NAPALI, as well as an executive coordinator for Pacific Islander Student Alliance for the University of California, Riverside alumni. So what drives your work in these spaces, and how has your background given you passion for these activities? What drives your work in these spaces, and how has your background given you passion for these activities?
In terms of, just to offer a little context, I would say like the larger Pacific Islander philosophy is reciprocity. And so I was given great amounts of mentorship by really great people who were in positions of influence, right, in the Pacific Islander community. And so my very good friend Kehalani Vaughn was a PhD student at UC Riverside while I was there, and she introduced me to a group called Empowering Pacific Islander Communities. They had an EPIC Scholars, so Empowering Pacific Islander Communities, EPIC, EPIC. They had a Scholars Roundtable in San Diego when I was at UC Riverside, and they invited me out to it with just a bunch of other awesome people from the local universities. And so it was there that I was introduced to kind of the community work that the Pacific Islander community needed. They introduced me to the just profound disparities that Pacific Islanders deal with, which I had internalized as something very personal. I didn't know that this was like a thing among Pacific Islanders. Yeah. And so when I realized like, yo, other people are dealing with this, and we're just kind of looking at the ways that we could help ourselves and our community, it became kind of a driving force for not only my academic work, but my professional, like what I wanted my professional work to deal with, and just a personal passion of mine. And so we took that work and we just ran with it at UC Riverside. And then traveling back to Northern California, I've kind of linked up with folks that I established relationships with in Southern California. And so the Mana learning community is headed up by Finau Sinatovo, who's also UC Riverside alum. She's amazing, Dr. Finau Sinatovo, I'm sorry. She's just consistently asking me to come and work with the Mana students because I'm a community college transfer. You know what I mean? I've been there. I've done that. I know what it's like. Exactly. And so when I'm sitting with the students and I'm talking to them about some of the struggles that they're dealing with, it's just like, I hate to be that person that's like, I've been there, done that. You know what I mean? But damn, I have been there and done that. And to realize that in 20 years, that those same obstacles exist for our students, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a problem. Now that we're in these positions, like Dr. Finau Sinatovo was in a position running the Mana community and working at College of San Mateo in the administrative position, like now we're in a position to make these changes. You know what I mean? So that 20 years from now, you know what I mean? We're not dealing with the same life.
Exactly.
And so, but SPIO, South Pacific Islander Organization, is an amazing organization that was started up by a beautiful woman named Marushka Hirshon. She's Stanford alum. Wow. And so she reached out to me. She's a beautiful Tahitian-American person who wanted to highlight me on like one of their monthly highlights or something.
I think I read that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I was looking you up.
So yeah, it's she's just amazing, and like they give out scholarships. They just advertised a scholarship that they're giving out for graduating seniors, I believe it is, and they didn't limit it to like Northern California or Bay Area or anything, which is great because I was like advertising that widely among my network in Utah and other states. But anyway, SPIO is amazing. Our UCR PISA alumni network, we literally just had a panel on this last week. And so they invited some of the alum back. So the Pacific Islander Student Alliance at UC Riverside is a group, it's a student organization. And while I was at UCR, we flipped this from like just a dance group to a student organization / student activist platform to make these fundamental changes in the system that have for such a long time, right? We're trying to educate our Pacific Islander students, but also the Pacific Islander parents of high school students to, you know, help them get their kids from high school. Let's bypass the junior college if we can, get them into universities. Then there's also things that we have to do to help them achieve success at these four-year universities, like get the kids used to not having family around. That's a huge thing for Pacific Islanders.
Really?
Like kids, is the community. Yeah, it's the community. Like we grow up in such a communal space that when we go to places like Ohio or, you know, Texas, well, parts of Texas have a lot of Pacific Islanders, but like, you know, in these different areas, like where there aren't Pacific Islander communities, they're losing, you know, the discomfort drives them to the point where like they just drop out of school. Like, and it's happened so many times. I've talked with some of my friends over at Epic. It's really unfortunate, but it's just kind of helping the parents giving them resources to support their students who are like far, far away. Yeah. How can we support these students? How can we encourage them to stay where they're at? Yeah. You know, giving them giving them insight on like the larger changes that this will make for the community, and hoping that, you know, that might inspire them or encourage them to stay where they're at. And so those are just kind of some of the things that like PISA does, and NAPALI. Yeah. NAPALI is an amazing. Anyway, what I'm saying is like this is these kind of Pacific Islander leadership networks, these Pacific Islander networks for academic success. It's all based on I think like the larger Pacific Islander philosophy of reciprocity. Yeah, we've been given all that we've been given in terms of resources and advice and knowledge, and all we're doing is giving that back. And it's kind of our responsibility to give that back, and that's the way that we see it. So I think, and we just keep giving. We take and we give, and we take and we give, and we do that till the day that we die. There's no stopping. You can't get out of it.
No. I love that. I love that the community aspect, and that as a community you organize to better your community. It should be admired. And I also want to say that I placed your outreach up front because a major reason why I love to feature people on the channel is because of their outreach work. But you're also doing big things with your scholarship as well. And I want to highlight that you're also on the programming board and planning committee for the Tongan Research Association conference for 2021. Can you speak a little bit about that before we go into the next half of the interview?
Sure. So I had applied with my friend to co-present a paper on the Mana learning community, the Mana classroom as a sacred space. At the Tongan Research Association conference in 2019. And after that, the planning committee, the lead organizer for the 2021 conference, reached out to the American group, because the 2019 conference is held in Tonga, and then the 2021 conference will be held in Hawaii. And so every conference, they go back and forth from Tonga to some other place. It could be in some other American city next. Yeah, wow. It's pretty cool. So Dr. David Ka'ili reached out to the American cohort from the Tongan Research Association. And we've just been kind of planning this for the last year. The conference is coming up in September. Yeah, in September in Hawaii. And then I was like, I call this voluntold, and I don't know if you know what voluntold means.
Can you please donate your time? If you don't, I will hate you.
I didn't volunteer for this. I was voluntold to serve on this committee. But it's been great. We've been trying to expand the Tongan research community for a while, and there's kind of a divide between old school and new school Tongan scholarship.
Oh, really?
And so
What's that?
having, I think, younger people on the board. So there's kind of like old school, I don't want to call them gatekeepers because I think they're not necessarily gatekeepers. They are kind of the wayfinders for Tongan research. They're like the first to have the PhDs to kind of do the work to get on the ground for all of us. And I think that maybe they're not engaging in a lot of this like kind of post-structural modern criticism that the younger scholars do. And so we're taking a hard look at like these structures. We want to take all of like Western philosophy and throw it out the window. But I mean, you know, I'm not saying that they're not doing this. I'm saying that there's
it's just a different way about. I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. And so I think the older TRA has been kind of accommodating, you know, the older kind of style of, I guess, the Tongan research. And I think, you know, kind of putting younger folks on the board, on the planning committee, is inviting kind of these newer ideas into the space. And so I love it. And I'm excited because there were so many people. I'm also on the reading committee. And so reading all the abstracts and seeing all the younger folks like coming through to represent, like, I'm so pumped. I'm so pumped for
Wow,
September.
And you're still in your PhD. That you should. Any school would want you.
I just got an email from someone at the Mormon Historical Association. And so, or Mormon History Association. And they're asking me to be on their programming board for the next MHA conference next year, which is like, this is the first year I'll be actually going to an MHA program. A conference in Utah next week. I'm leaving next week, but it's the week after. And then, like it's Twitter. Twitter did this to me.
Oh,
like,
really? Twitter? That's so cool. So can you explain? Because I actually read this up too. Because when you explained your research in their class, a large population of people in Tonga are Mormon, which is why it's a part of your research. Can you explain?
So I think the Mormon website, actually the LDS.org or whatever website, estimates like the 60% of the Tongan population to be Mormon, but I know that not to be true.
Okay.
That's a gross overestimation.
Okay.
Like 60%. Like
that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but so it's not 60%. Maybe 30%. I don't know. 30% sounds like a more accurate number. But anyway, I think I study Tongan or Mormonism, and I study Tongan Mormons because the first Tongans in America, in like the continental United States, were Mormon, and they came through the Mormon Church. So they came on scholarship to Brigham Young University in Provo to go to school, and I know that because my maternal grandfather's brother was one of the first who came, like in 1968. Wow. And I've known that story, you know, growing up, but I wasn't aware that he was kind of one of the, you know, of the original, like kind of Tongan community builders. And so that's why I look at Mormonism and Tongan Mormonism, because I think that the Tongan-American identity, because of how Tongans use religion, you know, to center their identity and as a lens for seeing and understanding the world, that the Tongan-American identity was shaped by Mormonism, by these original Tongan community builders in Utah. And so that's why Mormonism is really important for my work. And I've just recently been putting myself out there with like kind of the work that I've been doing work, working with material from from like Mormon archives
Yeah.
and things like that. I just never have put my work out there like that
Okay.
until this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I put it out, I put it out there just kind of via interview. I haven't like put my actual work out there, which is like I'm just ridden with anxiety like over that. But I'm like scared. But my first actual like conference presentation, will be at the AAR, the American Academy of Religion, in November, and then I'm checking out the MHA in June just to network and check out the folks I'll likely be, hopefully working with soon. But yeah, they actually asked me, and I haven't replied to them yet. Like for sure, I'm saying yes, but like I've been taking the last couple days to just chill. I needed to take a break because I was going crazy over the edits for one of my chapters. I just need to get away from this. Yeah, it's been pretty bad. So I haven't opened my email. I mean, I opened that email, but I haven't like looked at things just for the last 2 days. But yeah, I was offered, it's so cool, a position to work on the MHA programming committee, and then I'm totally gonna accept it.
Oh,
and cool. You're the first to know. You get an exclusive.
Wow. Oh wow, yes, this is first up on the YouTube channel. That's so cool. Awesome. Thank you for watching part 1 of my interview with Esiteli Hafoka, PhD candidate at Stanford University in the Religious Studies department. I hope you enjoy. Please like and subscribe to the channel because that helps me to, advance this platform and get these amazing stories out there. And see you in part 2 coming up